Hello and welcome to the MLB on the RotoRadar podcast. My name is Joshua Riemer. I'm joined by none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Jared Block. Jared, we've had a weekend full of baseball, a weekend of a lot of fun baseball, and now we head into another week, the first full week of the MLB season. I don't know about you, but I am excited, sir. How are you doing, though?
Doing well, man. Today I found out, I already knew in the back of my head that the Brewers were hosting the Mets in the midday today, but was woken up to people at, I was awake, but, doing my Monday morning routine. Then all of a sudden I start hearing cans open from outside, people yelling, people screaming. I live, just for context, 2-3 blocks away from Miller Park. So today started pretty early for a lot of those people, and the game is currently underway right now. So that was like the true wake up call of like, hey, baseball's here, spring's here. But obviously, I've been paying attention every single day. Lots of interesting stats to bring into a Monday, and now we actually have like 4 or 5 days under our belt now where we can kind of look at some more data for this year.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's been a good start for us for the MLB season in terms of props and everything. We have been I'm not going to say immaculate. That feels like I'm overselling us a little too much. But we have hit a slip on both sites every single day since the new site has launched. So feel really good about that, and it's been good. I've started out on my stream 21-11 win-loss record, which I feel pretty good about. And in terms of the DFS stuff, man, we're right there. Ended up just barely losing yesterday by literally half a FanDuel point in some contests.
Yep.
And but ended up getting a big win on DraftKings, which was definitely much needed. So got a good win on DK, just right there on FanDuel. We're gonna pick it up. It's a long season, but yeah, we have a good chunk of games to talk about today. A chunk of games where we don't have to worry about NBA DFS afterwards, which I don't know about you, but I'm excited about. And yeah, should be fun to go over with you, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and get started. Today's slate does lock at 7:05 on both FanDuel and DraftKings. We'll mention some spots maybe in the 5 o'clock games, maybe towards the end of the show that we like a little bit more. But I do think that we can go ahead and get started with the first game on the slate here, which is going to be the Philadelphia Phillies against your New York Yankees. Right now, the Phillies are coming in as a plus 150 underdog on the money line behind Taijuan Walker. And then nasty Nestor Cortez is on the mound for the Yankees, minus 178 at home. 7.5 is the total for this game, so it does rank on the lower side of things today. And then I guess before we get into anything, we have to just mention how crazy some of the weather is. It's going to be a thing this entire week. I know you and I are both experiencing some pretty insane storms tomorrow and Wednesday, but today is rain in Chicago, as well as wind everywhere. And so today's winds for Yankee Stadium are going to be blowing right to left at 15 miles an hour. It's around mid-50s, so not the worst weather in the world. But again, the wind is going to be playing a huge factor today. Maybe not so much in this game, but others as we go along here. So let's start with the pitching in this game. You have Walker versus Cortez here. Cortez is going to find himself at the top of the player pool on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Philly's not usually a team that I'd like to, bully, and we know that they've been involved in very high-scoring games in the first couple against Texas, and obviously last night not as much. So how do you feel about Nestor today? How do you feel about Yankees pitchers going deep in general and just the overall spot here?
Yeah, man, not all that excited about this spot, in all honesty. I think there's some okay spots for Nestor where I think he could have success. He's probably going to get to go up against Kyle Schwarber, probably going to get to go up against Stott. Both of those guys are really good matchups for him. He was locked down against lefties last year. But these righties could really cause some damage. Turner, definitely a solid bat that could potentially cause him damage. Same thing with Muto. There's a lot of righties on this team that do pretty well against left-handed pitching. So I'm not all that excited about Nestor, especially when you have to pay up at these unrealistic price tags all the way up at the top of the player pool. It's going to be hard for me to take any Nestor Cortez today. And honestly, I don't want to target against this Yankee team either. They've looked really good. First time in team history where in the first series they've had 2 shutouts in the series. two
Hmm.
really good pitching games for them. So I know it's the Giants. It's definitely a different conversation, but like than taking on this Phillies team. But I still feel pretty good about where their pitching is at. So kind of happy to just stay away from this point.
Yeah, I think that today we're going to talk about the top of the player pool for pitching in general, but we have noticed a trend of people just going YOLO and paying way up at the top every single day, just like we've seen the year before and the year after that and the year after that, and at some point that's not going to work out. So maybe that's today. We'll talk about Rasmussen and Kirby and Gray here at the top as we move along, and Charlie Morton. So interesting spots for a lot of these guys. I think today is a good example of a spot where you should stay away from that. And yeah, I think that's let's move this thing over to the other side. Talk about these Yankees bats going up against Walker. There is some sample size here, but I also think that you need to take a look at what this Yankees team has been doing over the last couple of days, which has been smacking home runs. So I know that Stanton and Judge have done pretty well over the past couple of days here. But what do you like for this team?
Dude, I cannot believe that you were not the first one to bring up this judge call because I saw the BVP and I'm not even Mr.
Oh,
BVP
it's
like
there.
you are.
It's
Oh, it's
there.
there. It's more than there. It's possibly some of the best
I
BVP.
wrote it up today. I wrote it
Okay,
up.
okay, good. Glad to hear it. 4 for 10 for Judge, 4 home runs out of those 4 hits. Some insane statistics
Yeah.
there. I like the spot for Judge. I'd like more lefties against Walker though, because he's susceptible to lefties more so than righties. I don't know. Like Taiwan Walker's not bad though. Like I'm not going to call him a gas can. I'm not going to get super excited about this spot for the Yankees. I just think there definitely is some upside here. So Judge has to be one of them. Some articles came out about Stanton and how he wants to be the king of exit velocity this season. How he wants to approach this season as a scientist, and how he's approaching his swing and everything. And yeah, I think that this is a spot where Stanton had that big home run earlier in the weekend, and I think he can continue to have success here. And he also has that good BVP too.
Yeah, it does feel like you will want maybe a mini stack. You're gonna find yourself. It's gonna be pretty expensive, but something where I think that it is interesting because there are gonna be a lot of teams. Maybe not in the top tier, but there's a lot of teams where the Yankees are in this B tier. And I think we want to call it today, with the Rays, with the Padres, with the Rangers, those and the Reds. The Reds not necessarily on this slate, but yeah, that group of teams today. I think that a mini stack could be interesting for tournaments if you don't want to rock with those historic numbers. I know BVP isn't everything, but when Aaron Judge, the only hits that he has are home runs, it's something you have to take a look at, especially when I don't know what is he on pace for right now, like 110 home runs this year. So
Sure, why not?
you have to look at it today. I
Yeah.
will say one more thing. This does help the righties right in a spot where the wind is blowing from right to left. Um, if you're gonna pull the ball, then I would expect things to have a little bit of a emphasis toward going out of the park.
Yeah, the problem is that you do have that short porch out and right that these guys are trying to hit things towards. With the wind blowing to the
Sure.
left, you're essentially hitting it away from that short porch. Could end up as a fly ball out, or maybe, it doubles okay, but still, you'd rather have a home run. Takes down the park factors, I think, a little bit with this Yankee Stadium. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, it's a good spot. These guys are GPP guys at the best of it, though. Not really cash game plays here. I think you have some props that you can take. I like Judge over 1.5 total bases. His hitter fantasy score is up to 9.5. I want to get your thoughts
I
on this
know.
because I talked about this
Yeah.
on stream a lot and just said like I can't. If you don't have steal potential, I can't get behind 9.5. Like I know the home runs are home runs, but 9.5 is a bit high. So give me your thoughts on that real quick, and then we can move on.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would say to that is that at least you get walks with a guy like Judge, and I wish that they accounted for a little bit more. But that is what it is because I think Price Picks is 2, right, while Underdog is 3. Uh, Let me just check that here. Yeah, based on
Total.
balls is 2 for Prize Picks. So you're talking about like a guy that can get a single and 3 walks. So that's not
What are
going to
the
get you.
chance? What are the chances that we see a single and 3 walks though? Like I think that is so slim. I think you're just
I know.
at nine and a
A
half. You're
walk
just
into
go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. I think a walk and 2 hits and an RBI is fine, but then that's still pretty high, right? So if you want to go with the historics, then by all means, I mean, Judge, we shouldn't doubt Judge getting 9 fantasy points. So I don't know.
I guess my
If
point
you're
is
taking it, if you're taking the risk, it's probably a 5 pick flex.
I guess my point is that like if you're getting a walk and 2 hits, you're getting 1.5 total bases. My problem is that like he can get walked 4 times and he wouldn't cover this 9.5 point spread. He would have to get walked 3 times with a single and to get this 9.5 point number. Why not? He could get a double today alone, just a double. You would miss that nine
Still
and a
miss.
half,
Yeah.
and he could get 2 walks and hit a double, and you'd still miss because that'd only be 9. You'd get hooked, and you could get over 1.5 total bases. The same thing applies to Jordan. We'll talk about that spot later, but he has the same exact number. I think these 9.5 hitters fantasy scores are silly for guys who don't have steal. Now, I guess the qualifier is that like Judge does have just the tiniest bit of steal potential. I don't think so in this game against Real Muto, but something to keep in mind later on in the future. All right, I think we're good with this one,
Yep.
Jared. I don't think we need to cover anything else here.
Yeah, I think we're good. Let's go ahead and move on here to Tampa Bay and Washington. Right now, the Tampa Bay Rays are the -176 money line underdog, or sorry, money line road favorite here. Nationals +148 at home as the underdog. 7.5 is the total for this one. Weather, going to talk about it every single game. This is one of the warmer games of the slate. It's going to be in the 70s here, and the wind's going to be blowing out to left center around 11 to 12 miles an hour. So good stuff all the way around here. Rays, I know that they came in a little bit popular. They're more popular on the hitter side on Sunday, but we've been targeting these Rays pitchers for the majority of the opening week, obviously because of them playing the Detroit Tigers. Now they get this Washington team who I think we've been pretty spot on with the last series against the Braves and going full go or stay away spots here. Drew Rasmussen, let's talk about it. I think that we can at least say that the Rays to start off aren't necessarily limiting their guys outside of, I know Eflin got limited a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that was more so because of the blowout situation, less so because of the game overall, at least, and less so because of the pitcher spot. I think this Rasmussen spot's good. I like the price tag. This Washington team is just striking out at incredible rates against righties right now, which not something I thought would happen coming into the season. Kind of talked about it on some other shows, how they had limited strikeouts in preseason or in spring training. So was kind of expecting them to keep that same mentality from last year because last year they didn't strike out all that much, and they could. It's early on in the season. We could see things revert, but the problem is that Rasmussen's a really talented pitcher. You're talking about one of the better 4-hole pitchers in the league right now. It's hard not to say that you can't like Rasmussen on this slate against the Nationals. I think there's upside here. This Washington Park, for the most part, is pretty pitcher friendly. I like this Rasmussen spot. I can definitely get behind it.
Yeah, there's obvious concerns about the wind. That would be one thing that would downplay this. And this is not a downplay factor, but we have seen FanDuel just jack up the prices of Tampa Bay pitchers. And then on the reverse side, DraftKings is a little bit more humble here. So just like yesterday, Springs was pretty discounted on DK. Rasmussen's going to find himself in that same boat, 8,100 on DraftKings versus 10,200 on FanDuel. I also just want to get your thoughts on a strikeout prop for Rasmussen here. I know that we have been a little bit iffy on these Washington strikeout rates. Rasmussen's coming in with 4 strikeouts right now. That's the number.
Doesn't it feel fishy? Doesn't it feel too low? It feels way too low, man. Too low. Yeah, I completely agree. I don't know what to do with it. I'm going to stay away from it. I think I don't know, with just where the number is at, I think it's very easy to say that he can go over, but because it's so easy to say that, it just doesn't feel right. So at least that's my view of things. With seeing how much this Nationals team is striking out, I could certainly see him going over this number. But like I said, it's just fishy.
Yeah, there's only 3 guys in the projected lineup that strike out less than 20%. Those being Keibert Ruiz, CJ Abrams, and Vargas at the bottom. Yeah, I mean, a lot of maybe I know last year we were staying away from targeting this kind of thing, but it does look like the addition of Dominic Smith, Heimer Candelario, Lane Thomas already existing on this team. I mean, it does look like they could be in a spot where that K rate could go up over the course of the year.
It's early. That's all I'll say. You'll hear me say it like 30 times probably today, but it's really early to make any declarations on these teams. It's good to see
Yeah.
where they're at and like take note of it at this point. But we'll have to see. This is a good spot to get a test of it because Rasmussen's a pretty elite K pitcher, and if we can see this Washington team hold off a little bit, maybe we can get back on that train of this Nationals team isn't necessarily that much of a strikeout threat. Um, I'm not interested in any Washington bats. Let's talk about Tampa Bay because they do get a pretty interesting matchup against Trevor Williams.
Yeah, Trevor Williams, dating back to last year, 4.63 xFIP. The K rate sits at 22% collectively. Swinging strike rate is above 10.2%. Doesn't strike out lefties at all. And the K rate to righties is pretty good, is actually really, really good at 31.7%. Limiting hard contact, not really a ground ball guy, but you do want to target some of these lefties here. So there are quite a few of them to look at. Brandon Lowe kind of starts off here in the projected two-hole. Wander Franco being a guy that is a switch hitter, so he can rake from this side. Rayleigh, what are your thoughts on some of these Tampa guys?
Yeah, I like these Tampa guys. I like these lefties. They're cheap. They're in good spots. Brandon Lowe, you can get him at 3K on FanDuel. You can get him below 4K on DraftKings. Rayleigh, you can get at really cheap price tags, 2,100 on FanDuel, 2,700 on DK. Wander's probably going to be one of your most expensive guys, but still, there's a lot of plays on this side. I like the upside here. I think that I could get behind it against Trevor Williams. Washington doesn't have a good bullpen too. I can buy into it. I like these Tampa Bay lefties. I think they're a solid stack. I don't think necessarily they're a top end stack, but I think they certainly have the chance to get some runs on the board.
Yeah, I think that they are pretty clearly in this B tier with the Yankees. I think that's a really good way to put them in. I think I would rank Tampa a little bit higher, just slightly, because I think that there's a nice stack ability there and it's pretty cheap compared to those Yankees hitters. Also want to mention in passing that the prop number doesn't exist for Brandon Lowe yet. We'll keep an eye on that as we go along here. Might be something we release to our package and content holders. I think that you can also take a look at Wander Franco. It's at 8.5 fantasy points on both sites, like you said, to kind of jump up from guys that have stolen base upside. Feels high, but at the same time, I would take it on a prize picks probably more because of the fact that you get stolen bases at 5 points rather than 4 on underdog. So 8.5 fantasy points is something you could pencil in. But yeah, I think that's a pretty solid way to go. I like Tampa today.
Yeah, so do I. I think they're solid. I think they're a good value stack. I don't think you need to go much past that though.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's keep rolling. Pittsburgh, Boston's next. Right now, the Pirates are plus 126 on the money line here as the underdog on the road behind Oviedo. Cutter Crawford for the Red Sox minus 148 as the home favorite. 9.5 is the total here. And no surprise, if you watched baseball over the weekend, you saw the massive scoring totals between the Boston Red Sox and Baltimore Orioles. The weather is also going to agree with you today in that this game's going to be near that 9.5, if not over number. Boston's basically been clearing this over under number by themselves, and now you get a spot where it's mid 50s at first pitch. The wind's blowing out towards the Green Monster at 17 to 20 miles an hour. Sets up as a pretty good day for these bats, and most importantly, these Red Sox bats. So let's start with the. I don't really want to talk about Oviedo, but I guess I will start talking about him and how that affects the Boston Red Sox bats here. So we'll start off with that side of things. 4.87 xFIP for Oviedo over the past season or so. There's enough of a sample to actually get this data. So 22% K rate to both handedness is pretty average there. He's got a good swinging strike rate at 11.2%. Doesn't strike out lefties as much. Doesn't really give up that much hard contact. He's kind of more of a ground ball pitcher. So where are we targeting for Boston if we like the spot for the bats environmentally wise?
Yeah, looking for some guys that can elevate the ball here. Some guys that maybe won't strike out as much, which is somewhat tough because I do like the Duval spot once again. Got named Player of the Week right before we went live on the stream. So congrats to him. He had a killer week for sure. And I think this is a spot where he should do well. I want righties. I don't really want lefties. Oviedo did a pretty good job at limiting a lot of power hits against lefties. Against righties is where he typically struggled. So Duval, Turner. I guess I can get behind the Verdugo endeavors if you really wanted to. I think you need exposure to Boston today, and I'm looking to get a lot of it at the top of this lineup if at all possible.
Yep, absolutely. Just to keep in mind, guys, we are live and we're taking any questions from the chat. If you guys have any comments or questions for anything that we're talking about, feel free to post it in there, and we will get back to you on it as soon as possible. Yeah, I think that you can take a look at these Boston bats today and actually put them in the A tier with a couple of teams that we're going to talk about later. I do think that they qualify as that today, and I think that they're just going to continue like the guys that are raking are going to continue to rake in this spot.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. If you had to rank your 3 favorites, who would they be?
I mean, it's hard not to put Duvall first, honestly. I think that he makes a lot of sense. Also, considering that the fly ball rate's the highest by at least 8% on the team, I think I would rank Turner second, and I don't want to put Devers there yet. I just haven't seen it from him yet, so I'll put Verdugo third.
I was going to say 1-3-5 too. I think that lines up as the 1-3-5 in the lineup, and I think it's pretty solid. Verdugo, Turner, Duvall. Verdugo's had a really hot start to the season, and Turner and Duvall are probably the better righties to take against Oviedo. So really like what that 1-3-5 holds in terms of some correlation there for DFS. Let's talk about this other side. Let's talk about the Pirates a little bit.
Yep. Last thing I'll just mention here is that hopefully you get a spot where Adam Duvall's not going to strike out. I think that as long as he doesn't, then he should be in a good spot to continue. If he's seeing the ball well, he's seeing the ball well. So Pirates going up against Cutter Crawford. Crawford 4.94 xFIP to K rates at 23%. Swinging strike rates above 10 at 11.5%. Is giving a lot of hard contact up to lefties. The ground ball rate doesn't really exist for him either. And so we're going to get a spot where I think, you just got to back the Vegas over-under here, an implied game total. And I think that these Pirates are in a good spot depending on what their lineup looks like. So it does look like they're going to go pretty left-heavy today. The only true righty being Andrew McCutchen. I should say Keep Ryan Hayes, if he makes the lineup, will be in the bottom of it. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes here. I think that O'Neal Cruz is a guy we just need to start off and target here. If he's not going to hit the ball on the ground against Crawford, which he does have a pretty high ground ball rate, I think that he's going to be able to succeed in this matchup. And I think that, honestly, the 1, 2, 4, and even we can talk about Smith and Jigba. I don't really know that much about him. I didn't really focus much on him this weekend. So if you have any enlightening there to share with me, go ahead.
Still wondering if he's the brother of the wide receiver or
if anybody
family.
knows, let us know.
Yeah, please, because we've been talking about this for a good couple days now. Regardless, though, I like the O'Neal Cruz spot a ton. You want a lefty against Crawford. Cruz can certainly be that guy. Reynolds also that guy. Reynolds had the home run yesterday, so looking pretty hot as of right now. I think it's a 1-2 situation. You take Cruz, you take Reynolds. You probably call it a day there. I'm going to go much farther than a mini stack because a lot of these other guys aren't really all that good. I mean, I guess you could take a flyer on a guy like Zawinski at the bottom of the lineup, but I don't know. You probably have better opportunities elsewhere on the slate to take those flyers. So I like the spot. I think Crawford's a bad arm. I think that he certainly has some K potential against some of these guys where you do have some higher strikeouts. But outside of that, it's not really a spot that I'm all that interested in for Crawford, and could definitely get some interest in some of these Pirates hitters.
Yeah, two things. First is that noticed, obviously, I was watching every single Boston game because it was pretty mandatory for DFS here. Their bullpen's got to be exhausted over the last, I know they had the day off on Friday, but they just have to be totally exhausted with everything that they went through. Like, I don't know, they gave up probably 25 runs. I'd have to go back and check. Maybe it was closer to 20 over the last games against the Baltimore Orioles. And now I just feel like the weather sets up in a really good spot yet again. So Crawford isn't going to make it 5 innings. They could be in some trouble today. I know that we're more focused on the Boston side, but I do want to mention that O'Neal Cruz and Brian Reynolds both have 6.5 fantasy score numbers on Prize Picks.
I like both of those a lot. Man, I wish I wrote those up. I don't think I went over this game on stream, but I wish I wrote both those up because those are both really solid. Both steals guys. I mean, that's the main thing that I focus on when you get those fantasy numbers. Is both of those guys have that steal number they definitely have that speed to get those steal numbers. So, man, I really like that. I really like both of those at 6.5. I could take the over on both and feel good about it.
Yeah, it's certainly hard to choose. So maybe if you wanted to, would you suggest playing both in a 5-pick flex? Like, I think that's definitely something that's
Can you even
doable
play
if you
both?
wanted.
I saw someone talking about how you couldn't play two guys from the same team. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think it's a little early to tell there,
I
but
don't know.
I would say over the long term, probably not a great idea.
I think Cruz is the guy that I would lean with, but I think both are solid. I would just lean with the guy at the top of the lineup, more opportunity most likely. But yeah, I think both are good to go. Um, okay, anything else here, Jared? If not, we should move on.
Yeah, O'Neal Cruz got the huge price increase on fantasy sites today, so you're gonna be paying a really big penny for him. I think there are probably better shortstop options today. If he was under 3K, it'd be a different story. You'd be plugging him in, but I would say if you're looking for contrarian ways to get different in this game, it is with going with the Pittsburgh bats and one of your favorite Boston bats. But yeah, that's where I'd stand with that. But we are obviously pretty high on Boston.
Man, I don't mean to I don't mean to talk about this on stream, but Jock just hit a home run today when I had him as my call yesterday.
Oh
That is
gosh.
so much pain.
Yeah.
Anyway, we will move on. We'll talk about this next game.
Massive pain. All
Massive.
right. Toronto KC is next right now. The Blue Jays are minus 132 favorites on the road behind Jose Barrios. I said it right this time to start off the year. Kansas City Royals, Brady Singer, plus 112 at home, your boy. 8 is the total. For the weather, the Kansas City spot is going to be a little bit worse than it was the last couple of days. We have had some major wind blowing out. Now it's going to be in today, 72 degrees, so still great in terms of that temperature-wise. But the wind's blowing in at 8 to 10 miles an hour today, which isn't a complete stay away, but it certainly is something to note. So let's talk about Toronto first and talk about these bats going up against Singer. I know that the Blue Jays kind of just didn't really show up against the Cardinal pitching. I'll give a lot of credit to the Cardinals and just the overall pitching department that they have. Is this a spot where they can kind of rebound and bounce back today?
Your guess is a good. Well, so I have two sides of this. On one side, I would say, yeah, I think they can. Keller's, he's solid, right? 3.82 xFIP last season was certainly a candidate to be that top end guy. They have added some lefty power in this Toronto lineup that makes it a little bit more scary against Singer. I still think there's certainly some upside. The problem for Singer is that I don't know how many Ks he's actually going to get from this matchup because you go
Yeah.
through the lineup and you have Springer, Bichette, Kirk. A lot of these guys are low K rates. And Singer doesn't really strike out righties anyway. He mostly strikes out lefties. So it's kind of tough for me to say that like Singer's going to have a really good day. I could see him somewhat limiting Toronto though. I don't know. I think Toronto could get to that bullpen for sure. But I don't know if they're going to be able to get the Singer.
It's a super troll spot for these lefties. Like, so one thing Toronto did pretty well in the offseason was actually get lefties that can contribute. We know that we've been targeting them in spots where if they are really like if the pitcher's dominant against righties, then we're going to attack that pitcher. This year they put in guys like Dalton Varsho, they put in Brandon Belt, Kevin Kiermaier at the bottom here. But like you said, Brady's better at striking out lefties. The problem is he's giving up a ton of hard contact when he's not striking out those lefties. The biggest problem is all the three lefties that they got in the offseason strike out above 22%. So
Mm-hmm.
it kind of just mitigates itself, unfortunately. But if you want to take a shot on one of those guys, I would say it's probably Varsho.
Yeah, sure. I don't mind it. I would rather take the spot on Singer, more tournament based
Yeah.
than anything else. But
Mhm.
I see the upside. I just struggle with thinking that he's going to get like 8 Ks or get into the high single digit number Ks here. I could see him get like 5, go 6 innings, hold them down to 2 earned runs, and just kind of have like a mediocre day. The big problem is like, what is Barrios going to do on the other side? Is he going to be awful like he was in the WBC? Is he going to be good like he was in spring training? We really don't know, and I think that's a spot I struggle with the most.
Yeah. So Barrios here over the last year, 2022 to this year, 4.71 xFIP. The K rate's at under 20%, which was probably the first time in that. I'd have to take a look at Baseball Reference to see if it's under 20% for the first time in his career. Swinging strike numbers are under 10%. Really not doing well against lefties, and I know that He's just not a guy that we can rely on pretty heavily, and he has massive blow up upside. If things go south here, the problem is like Kansas City just looked pretty abysmal in the first series to start off the year, and it shouldn't be shocking to anybody. So it really is: can you bet on the Barrios spot, and can you bet on I don't know. This lineup just looks bad, man. I know that's already out today.
Oh, dude.
I don't feel. I don't know,
So
man.
mean.
I'm not feeling it. So many lefties, though. So many lefties, so it could work out.
Yeah, they haven't got a lot of lefties. I don't know. I'm not willing to call them bad quite yet. I think there's a lot of talent on this
Oh,
KC
it could
team.
be bad.
It could be, but I mean, it could have just been a bad weekend against the Twins too. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what Barrios is going to do today. I'm going to stay away from it, watch the game, make sure to keep an eye on where Barrios is. Like I said, he's even had a confusing spring where he went to the WBC, had a really terrible inning where he gave up 5 earned runs, ended up getting yanked and didn't even get out of the first. Kind of similar to that Rangers game last year that started out the year for him where he gave up 7 earned runs. And but then he went into spring training and had a game where he had 5 innings and looked dominant. So it's just what Barrios do we end up getting? I don't know. Beats me. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That's why I'm excited to
Yeah.
see what happens today and kind of get a judgment of where he might be at in terms of his in terms of headwise.
It's the perfect day to stay away from this until we know more. So,
Exactly.
all right. If I felt better in some of these lefties, I'd go all ham on them. But again, we'll see how it goes. I think there are better spots today.
I agree.
All right. Let's continue and move on to the next game, Atlanta and St. Louis. A matchup between two contenders today. Right now, the Atlanta Braves are minus 126 on the road with Charlie Morton as the favorite. We have Woodford for the Cardinals here, a plus 108 money line, home underdog. 8.5 is the total for this game. The weather for St. Louis is going to be beautiful today for hitting. 70s, and the winds are blowing out to left at 12 to 15 miles an hour. Let's start with the Charlie Morton spot. I know you covered him a little bit on your stream earlier today. You want to just kind of go over that again?
Sure. This St. Louis team's really talented, man. I mean, they showed up to that Toronto series and looked dominant. They looked really good all the way through. So,
Yeah.
and it's a good team to look good against. Toronto's no slouch. So, this St. Louis team looks really good. Even last year, they were really good. Charlie struggled against them last year. I don't think people go here, but I just really see an under spot. Who knows what Charlie is going to look like at the beginning of the year? Typically, he struggles in the first month of the season. So this should be a spot where he struggles against a really talented St. Louis team. So I took on the stream under 27 fantasy points. What do you think about that play? And is there any other comments from you for Charlie today?
Said under 27?
Yes.
I like it. I think that there's a real chance that he does not get the quality start today.
I agree.
And if he does, there's also a really good chance he doesn't get the win today. So neither of those things can be banked on, and that can be something that's worth 10 fantasy points. So yeah, I don't, and you just factor in the spot where I know that St. Louis has some guys, and this isn't final. I'm be curious to see if we have this lineup, but I think that they do have guys that have higher K rates. Like Contreras being in there is certainly going to bolster the K rate. Nootbaar, Gorman, he hit 2 home runs yesterday, but that K rate's still sky high, highest on the team. So can he get the spots? Sure. I don't know. I would kind of side with him being in a spot where you have to also look at the fact that he is an older and more injury-prone pitcher, and the fact that they already are missing Max Fried could potentially limit them in this spot. So we'll see. I mean, I think Charlie could go 5 and strike out 5, maybe give up 2 or 3 runs, and that's definitely not 27 FanDuel points.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree there. I kind of am fine with just staying away from this game. Even if both of these starting pitchers end up struggling, you're going to see 2 elite bullpens come out as long as the game isn't out of hand. That's my other thing with Charlie is like he has to be on somewhat of a short leash, because if he does struggle, they've got to be so much more willing to just go to the go to the bullpen. And they've already been talking a ton at the beginning of the year how strong that bullpen is. So
they stacked it.
Yeah, and same thing goes for St. Louis, right? They have an incredibly strong bullpen as well. So I don't know. I have a hard time going to either one of these offenses and feeling good about it. But do you feel good about any of these Atlanta hitters?
I just don't know how much risk we can take in rostering guys against Woodford. I mean, I know the K rate's not great, and I know that probably going to be what I don't expect the leash to be very long here, right? Like you shouldn't expect it could be even more of a bullpen game for this team. What are we expecting? Like 4 innings here? The
Yeah.
K rate's not good. It's kind of a smaller sample size. Ground ball stuff's great though, and that kind of worries me. He's limiting hard contact. So Braves right off the bat. I mean, I don't know, just don't love it. Some of these ground ball rates are pretty high, and the ones that aren't, I don't feel like it's like a slam dunk anymore.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think it's tough here. I guess you could go Olsen if anyone, but that's just getting a lefty and a lefty that does a good job of elevating the ball. But outside of that, I mean, it's going to be tough to target any of these guys, and I'm fine with just staying away.
Yeah, an 11 game slate feels like a good spot to stay away here.
Got to
I
stay away
think
from a
that
lot of stuff.
people may be inclined because they've rostered the Braves countless times and they don't know who this Woodford guy is. That I know that's a very basic DFS 101 mentality there, but it could happen, and we've seen it happen the 4 days now that we've been in here. People just stack the crap out of Acuna and Albies and Austin Riley. So that's not going to work all season. It has worked so far for you outside of yesterday, which we called yesterday. Yes, it was yesterday.
Mhm.
Anyway, though, it's a good spot to stay away.
I would agree. Definitely a good spot to stay away from. Uh, let's move on. Let's talk about this next game. A game that I actually think has some hitters in it.
It's a fun game. Baltimore and Texas is next right now. The Orioles are plus 116 behind Kyle Bradish. John Gray on the mound for the Rangers minus 134. 8.5 is the total here. The biggest thing that I saw today that I want to just jump off right off the page and say to you, I don't know what the wind looks like. We're going to have to take a look at that, but the roof is open today for
Oh,
Globe Life.
nice. Hell yeah. Probably going to be hot. Most likely. I mean, they wouldn't open it because it's cold out. Yeah, I like this spot, man. I like the spot for this Rangers team. I'm worried about them coming out a little bit slow. Played Sunday night baseball last night, but luckily they're at home. They don't have to go to the travel of it all. So they get to face off against Bradish, who struggled through the spring, almost lost his spot to Grayson Rodriguez. Bradish ended up barely keeping it, but the team has kind of said that they're willing to go to Rodriguez at any point now. And I see good reason behind it. Bradish is struggling. He's definitely got some skills, but he's struggling so much against right-handed hitters that I have to have some interest in this Rangers team. I think Marcus Semien, really good option. Adolis Garcia, really good option. Jung hit the home run last night, looked
Yeah.
really good. He looks really talented. We've seen a lot of rookies that look talented this year. I'm excited about him, and I think he's an option here. I like this Rangers team. I like the righties, not the lefties. I know it sounds weird, but Bradish is reverse split, so you definitely
Yes.
want those righties, and these righties should do pretty well here. I wouldn't say this is a top line stack. This isn't like an A stack. This is more like a B plus, probably.
For the Rangers, I would say that this is that tier with the Rays and the Yankees.
I think they're a tier above. I don't
Okay,
think.
so
I
it's
don't.
kind of like a one A, one B. Because if we
Yeah.
move the Rangers, we can move the Rays and Yankees down to a C tier.
No, I don't think they deserve that though.
I know it's a
I
weird.
guess
Texas is just in between. They're
yeah.
above. I think they're above the Rays, and um, I think that the roof being open definitely just is the piece on top that kind of carries it over.
Yeah, that's why I say I think that you can keep Yankees and Rays at B, but I think Rangers then deserve B plus or something like that because they don't
Uh-huh.
deserve to be on the same level as the Rays, and they don't deserve to be on the same level as the Rays and Yankees, but the Rays and Yankees don't deserve to be downgraded just because of how good of a spot this Rangers team is. I know we're all talking about semantics here, but regardless, I think the spot is really good for this Rangers team. Fifth highest implied total too, so Vegas agrees with us. This is a team
Semantics
that's
is
gonna.
everything.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
We are kings of semantics on this podcast, so
We certainly are.
we do it a lot. We'd probably do it more than most people ever would.
Probably.
So, I think that I can't rank them above the Red Sox, but it's pretty close. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I really like what I'm seeing from Marcus Semien as well. And I know it's expensive, but it is so worth it today. And we've also seen just as much as Red Sox pitching was bad in the bullpen, I mean, Baltimore's was pretty god awful this weekend too, even though they made some upgrades. So I think we'll see how that works out today. But I'm expecting this to be one of the highest scoring. Is this a 3-game series? I guess I'd have to go look at that later. But if we're talking about it tomorrow, I'm going to say the same thing. I think that this series can be one of the biggest series over the next 3 days in terms of run production.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you there.
Okay. On the Baltimore side, I know that we'll talk about John Gray. I know that you love John Gray. I have my moments with him where I like him in spots where I don't. And he's going to be really expensive today on both sites. And I just don't like targeting pitchers against Baltimore unless we find a trend that says otherwise. And they've been really pesky. I just this spot kind of screams like this could be bad John Gray. There's elite John Gray, and then there's a really steep drop off to the Grand Canyon of really bad John Gray. So which one is it going to be today?
Makes me sad, but I think you're right on saying it's probably the bad John Gray today. I don't know. I just refuse to target against this Orioles team as of right now. You said it perfectly. They're pesky, man. I mean, they've got guys who can run the base pads. They've got power. So if you're paying attention to those guys that are on the base pads and you're focusing on them trying to steal a little bit too much, bang, Adley Rutschman takes you a yard, and you just gave up a 3-run bomb. So like, it's just like that. It can completely turn around your start, and I don't know. This team's too dangerous for me to target, at least as of right now, how I see them. This Baltimore team is one of those top offenses that I'll be staying away from targeting this year.
Yeah. And I mean, I know that this got locked down over the course of the series, but we did see the Phillies put up a decent amount of runs in against some of the better pitchers on their staff. So I think that after, and they also played the Sunday night game too, right? Not that that's a huge deal, but it's just something that
I
I
mentioned that.
thought was noteworthy. So, yeah, I don't really want to target Baltimore. I think the bats are bats are better with the Texas Rangers, but I could see cases for stacking Baltimore, although I am the biased Baltimore fan here. So
Yeah, definitely. I can get behind that.
they are definitely C tier though. They're underneath, in my
Yeah, they're
opinion.
underneath, and they're I don't even. Well, I guess some of these lefties like Mullins, the guys who have steal upside, could potentially be in play, but yeah, I probably just wouldn't play anyone for Baltimore outside of the GPP stuff.
I think OG Nick's at work right now, but I want to just say on air that it's a good day to be a Brewers fan. It's 7-run fifth inning here, 10-0 Brewers right now.
There you go.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on here. Next game is going to be Detroit and Houston. Another game we're going to have to stop and talk about here. Right now, the Tigers are the plus 194 road underdog behind Matthew Boyd. Brown for the Astros minus 235 at home. One of the biggest favorites on the board here. 8.5 is the total. This Detroit Tigers team obviously has been a punching bag through the first 3 games of the MLB season. Now they get Matthew Boyd back, who missed a lot of last year. So a lot of the stats you're going to find really shouldn't be taken into too much consideration. But we do know that did the math earlier from 2019 to 2021. Matthew Boyd had a home run per 9 of 1.7, which for those wondering in the home run era, the average right now is 1.3, and anything above or anything below 1's pretty elite. So he's giving up a lot of home runs per 9. We know the guy's not great, and he gets a pretty nightmarish matchup today against these Houston Astros bats.
Yeah, man. The Prize Picks was a little bit scared. We talked about this while I was on the air. How not giving us a lot of props for these hitters, but they are certainly in a lot of good spots here. Really like the spot against Boyd, dating back to 2022. You don't have a big sample size, but you can see that his xFIP was all the way up at 5.67. He gives up a lot of hard contact over his career. This is a guy that we know that we can attack. I like these righties quite a bit. I think I can get behind Pena, Jose Abreu, Bregman, Chas McCormick if he ends up making the lineup today, which he should. I think there's just a ton of upside in this Houston team. This is one of those A-tier teams in my eyes. There's only 3 of them today, but this is certainly one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have anything bad to say about that. I think that that's also pretty obvious, but just making sure that you get the right Houston Astros is the correct way to go there. And so we're going to be on a lot of these guys, and I think that I'll bring up. I mean, I wrote up Jose Abreu for the BVP stuff. Just seeing him from the AL Central days when he was on the White Sox. Yeah, just I think that the spot speaks for itself is the best way to say it. So from there, where is there a guy that you won't play for the Astros today? Like, is there a group of players that you won't touch?
Martin Maldonado. I don't know. I might even play Martin because he's probably cheap on DraftKings.
DraftKings catcher. Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
exactly. So I don't think there is a guy
He
because
is.
I mean even the lefties aren't in bad spots. Like Alvarez and Tucker both do pretty well against other lefties. So I don't think there is a guy that I wouldn't touch in this lineup. I think if you're asking me to rank my favorites, it's probably going to be Pena, Alvarez, Abreu. Not in that exact order, but I think those would be my top three here. But I think you can even go to the bottom of this lineup. Go to guys like Hensley, Jolks, Martin, like we just mentioned. All of these guys are solid. And you even have, Nick Gustafson asked what pitcher has the best value on DraftKings. I think that pitcher might be on the other side.
Definitely. I'll just throw out Chaz there too.
Yeah,
just
Chaz
for
too.
GPP upside. But yeah, all right. Other side, we have Brown here. 2022 numbers, smallish sample size. It's about 90 plate appearances, a little bit closer to 100. 3.37 xFIP. The K rate sits at 24%. Swinging strike rate's 8.5. The hard contact given up is kind of scary numbers, but again, small sample size here, sitting around 50 if you take the average. But the ground ball stuff is fantastic. The K rate stuff's fantastic. And we just found a bump potentially for Brown here where Minute Maid Park's going to close that roof today. So we just found that out now. I feel better about the spot now, and considering what this projected lineup's K rate should be top to bottom here, they only have one guy that strikes out below 20%, and it is going to be Austin Meadows. So collective K rate here, 24.8% for this Detroit Tigers team. It's a pretty safe sample size to ride with. So Brown seems like one of the better candidates today.
Yeah, man, 7,400 is a really good price tag over on DK. I would even say 9,100 on FanDuel is a good price tag. This guy's elite. He's got nasty stuff. The fastball is plus. The curveball is plus that he has. The slider's really good too. I think it's like 60 out of 65 or 60 out of 60 over on most scouting reports. So this is a really good spot for Brown. He has some elite upside. This is the prospect that they've been talking about that was going to replace whoever they lost in this rotation. Ended up being Verlander, sadly, but Brown's been a pitcher in the making for this Houston team for quite some time now. And, last season's stats, I think it was in relief or something, but I think you could see some real AL rookie type stuff, rookie of the year type stuff today and throughout the season for him, but especially in this matchup. I mean, we just saw Tampa Bay pitching just absolutely demolish this team. And then they have to travel too and go to Houston. It's going to be a bad day. I like this Hunter Brown spot quite a bit.
Yeah, so just to recap here, you can make some really competitive DraftKings teams with just elite upside bats. If you go with Brown and then you also go with Rasmussen, I mean, you're paying like 15K, 15.5 to be exact with those two pitchers. So definitely a solid way to go. Not saying it's the best way to go, but it's definitely a solid way to go. Choice is tougher on FanDuel, obviously. And I think that if you're looking at Brown, I mean, let's talk props here. Why not? So let's see what we have here. He's got the what are we going to call it now? We got to make it a name for this. Like the strikeout prop line of death is where I want to like start the name branding here. 6 is the number on Underdog, and I think that number alone has just been like it's a very fine line of players that we can take over or under for that. So what's your lean? Actually, sorry. I should also note that it's 5.5 on PrizePicks.
I was about to say my lean is to go over to PrizePicks and play it there instead because I'd much rather get 5.5. I'd much rather just take his fantasy score. In all honesty, like that's what I want to attack here. Rather get an overall number. This Houston team's like minus 225 to win, so win feels, knock on wood, but kind of in the bag almost. And nothing's in the bag in baseball, but this Houston team feels pretty likely to win, in my opinion. So if I'm going to take anything, it's going to be this pitcher fantasy score of 29.5, though. It's something I talked about on stream. He got scratched from his last spring training start because he had some lower back tightness. He went through a simulated game, ended up saying, manager said he was going to be fine. Made me a little bit worrisome about the fact. I mean, I don't know. I get worried about that stuff. So maybe that's just me being someone who worries about that a lot. But I think if you want to be a little bit safer, you can go to MLB Live. You can get first 3 inning props. You can take him over 3.5 Ks in the first 3 innings. I think you're getting really solid value there, and you can maybe avoid some of that injury stuff in case maybe they limit him or something.
Yeah, yeah. I don't mind any of that. Technically, that would be like the only red flag that I see here,
Yeah.
outside of like inexperience. But I think there's enough experience to say that this is fine. I would also just Houston's not really notoriously known for pulling guys, so I think that all he's got to do is get to 5. But if he doesn't get 5, then I don't think he hits that fancy number either.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's about it. I think 3.5 in MLB Live, and then 29.5 pitcher fantasy score are the two that I would lean with, liking the MLB Live a little bit more.
Yep. Okay. Let's just to note again from Nick Gustafson's point here, Martin Maldonado's 2,600 on DraftKings. So
I
pretty
love
much
that play.
close to min price. Yeah, don't play Martin under 3 or over 3. We usually find him at around 2,500, so that's a really good spot there. All right, let's go ahead and move on here and talk about the next game. Is going to be the LA Angels and the Seattle Mariners. Right now, the Angels are coming in red hot here, and they are going to be plus 122 underdogs, where the Mariners also had a great series against the Cleveland Guardians, are the minus 144 home favorite. 7.5 is the total. Reed Detmers versus George Kirby. Really good matchup in the AL West here. Two guys that are going to be there for hopefully a long time. Let's talk about Detmers first, going up against this Seattle lineup. I just want to lead off by saying I never really know what to do with Detmers. You're more of the Detmers guy that's a little bit more dialed in. I usually prefer stacking against him, and you can certainly do that with the projected amount of righties that they have, which looks to be 8. So 4.78 xFIP for Detmers since last year, 22.6% K rate. The swinging strike number looks good at 11.2%. The K rate stuff, pretty average. Ground ball rate, I would say, is where you want it to be against lefties, a little bit worse against righties. The hard contact stuff is nearing 40%. Tough ballpark to pitch in, obviously, or a good ballpark to pitch in for him. Tough for hitters. I don't know, man. It does feel like Seattle can make some noise today. I think I'd want to focus more on the top of the lineup, but honestly, you can make cases for a lot of these righties today if you're bullish on the spot. So give me your Detmers take here.
Yeah, I think I'm going with righties. I like this Toronto team. Geez, this Seattle team. The reason I call them this Toronto team is because one of my favorite Mariners today happens to be a former Toronto player. Really like Teoscar Hernandez. I mean, he is the lefty slugger for this team, especially when you look at last year's numbers: 427 weighted on base average, 200 ISO. Just some really solid numbers in terms of how much he gets hard contact against lefties as well. Like, I love this spot for him against Detmers. I think J-Rod, Julio Rodriguez, also in play, a guy that I could get behind. He doesn't have that steal upside against a lefty, though, so that's a little concerning. But I think, like you mentioned, there's so many guys on this team that can smack around lefties. You got to have some interest in them as one of those B teams. AJ Pollock, another name that they added to this roster, that's a lefty smasher. Cal Raleigh, a lefty smasher to a certain extent. Like, they got a lot of guys that can do well against lefties. So I would lean on the side that Detmers is going to struggle. I have been wrong before. You say I'm the one more tuned in, but I will remind you that I had a full stack of Rays the night that he threw the no-hitter against them.
That's right.
So I can try to be as tuned in as I want to be, but I got that one just blatantly wrong, and I think that takes away all of my good calls that I've had about Detmers.
I will also throw Eugenio Suarez out there. I mean, two guys, or actually, if they have 3 guys on the team that have hard contact rates against his handedness over 50%. So not so much on the Murphy stuff later in the lineup, but I do think that Suarez makes a lot of sense too. What if I told you, would it surprise you, that this Mariners team has the lowest implied total on the slate today?
No, it doesn't surprise me. I think there's a few things behind it. One thing being is that this Detroit team or Jesus, I'm all over the place. The Seattle ballpark is really hitter
Yeah.
or pitcher friendly. One of the most pitcher friendly
Yep.
ballparks in all of baseball right now. Actually, the most pitcher friendly ballpark in all of baseball right now. So um, that's one thing to be concerned about. I think probably they're seeing Detmers some upside with Detmers. He did have a good end of the year last year, so I wouldn't be shocked. Are they really the lowest though? I thought.
They are tied with the Tigers.
Okay, I was about to say I thought the Tigers were the lowest, and Washington as well. Yeah, it's a little bit shocking. I'm not sure what to
Yeah,
make of that.
Washington's at. I mean, there's a lot of teams under 4, and I know like comparing team totals in MLB is a little bit more of a a very meticulous situation. So I think that you can group a bunch of those teams together, but technically they are tied with the lowest. So it makes sense. The park factor stuff makes sense. I'm just saying that if Detmers has an off night, I mean, there's a way that this thing he gives up 4 or 5 runs, and then I think that they can put up more than that. But yeah, maybe a one-off shot on something that you like the most, which would be a Teoscar, a prop or something.
For sure.
All right, Angels side, we've seen them after night 1 just completely erupt in some spots here, and that was against Oakland, obviously. But you get this spot against George Kirby, and a guy that we really liked targeting. The only issue that we saw was that they were really limiting him late in the season, or just the entire season in general. Like he wouldn't go more than 5 innings ever, and now he's coming in at a price tag of $10K on FanDuel. And DraftKings is a little bit more appropriate. Usually we were looking at him for SB2 anyway at $8K. So what should we look for the Kirby stuff this year? He's got A-level stuff. It's just, can he go far? And obviously I don't want to touch him against these LA hitters who are just on fire right now.
Yeah, man, I definitely don't want to. I don't want to play him at all. I could see his stuff regressing a little bit this season, and so especially against this Angels team, I talked about it on stream. I don't think there's a better spot than Mike Trout today. I truly believe it. Did even more research to really fall on this, but Kirby reverse splits struggles a lot more against right-handed hitters than left-handed hitters. Trout absolutely lighting the ball up to start out the year. Obviously, he's had 2 good back-to-back games, but even in the game where he went 0 for 4, you check out the exit velocity of all his hits that he had, and he's continually just smacking the ball around. He just had some bad luck hitting it right into a fielder's glove, but you also got to remember how well he hits in Safeco. This is a park where he is truly dominant. In terms of parks where he's had more than 100 plate appearances, this is his number 1 ballpark in the MLB where he hits. He has a .332 batting average. He has an 1144 OPS. He just absolutely smacks the ball around the Seattle ballpark. So I love Trout today. I think he's your pay up guy if you can. I think you're getting a huge discount on him at 3,800. I mean, to get him below 4K on FanDuel is an atrocity. It should be illegal to get him under 4K on FanDuel. I love the spot for Trout.
Yeah, just looking into something here because I think we're on topic of this. I could never remember. Oh, never mind. Disregard. I didn't remember where Lone Depot Park was, so I was going to take a guess that it was Seattle, but it wasn't. So it's the other side of the country in Miami. They're opening up the roof today in Miami, for those wondering.
Gotcha.
Anyway, I just figured that might be relevant, but it isn't. So I like the Trout spot. Think that you are paying a penny for it for the prop side of things, but I think that it's definitely necessary. Like necessary is in a 5 pick and maybe even a 2 pick kind of situation. So
yeah,
when Trout's hot, he's borderline unfadable.
Yeah, exactly. Completely agree there. Yeah, really like the upside. I like this Trout spot, and I think you can go farther with it, right? You can go to a Taylor Ward who has also been on fire. 6 for 10. Yeah, exactly. 6 for 10 over the last 2 days. We remember what Taylor Ward was preseason, or not preseason, but early season last year. First 2 months of the season, it was all the conversation, is Taylor Ward better than Mike Trout? Obviously, that regressed quite a bit, but if he has a similar hot start, man, I mean, we should be trying to take advantage of it while we can, and tonight could be that night.
Yeah, it probably stops there though because Anthony Rendon already has a knee issue, and he had a breather 3 days into the season, didn't play yesterday. So
is that a knee issue or is that a fan issue?
I think it's a fan issue disguised as a knee issue. For
Gotcha.
those who missed it, he attempted to Oh, we got very close to an altercation with a fan. You can find that on your own. It's on the internet somewhere. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I we'll see. But he is cheap though. I mean, like if you think that he's gonna come back today and do something, I like Rendon against lefties though. So we'll see. I think I like Ward and Trout better.
Yeah, I can agree. You can just keep it to a mini stack. You don't have to go much farther than that.
Alrighty, I think we're done with this game. We got 3 more to go. We're gonna continue crushing along here and go with this Cleveland and Oakland spot next. Right now, the Guardians are -154 on the road behind Plesac, James Caprillion. For the Oakland Athletics, a +130 underdog here at home. 7.5 is the total. Weather for this game: Oakland 50 degrees at first pitch. The wind blowing out to right center. 18 to 20 miles an hour. It's kind of mitigated by the fact that Oakland is such a huge ballpark. It's favoring the pitchers. But I do think that there's at least something to take a look at for this because we know how bad James Caprillion is, and that's not going to change start of this season.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The problem with this is that Caprilion's really bad against righties. He's actually okay against lefties. Like the K rate's still going to be bad, right? But he at least limits damage a little bit more when he faces off against left-handed hitters. You want righties against him, and there just aren't going to be a lot of righties in this lineup. They're going to have Ahmad Rosario. They're going to have Oscar Gonzalez. Who else? I guess Zunino and Straw probably at the bottom of the lineup, but like just not a lot of really good righties. So with it being so lefty heavy on this team, I think I'm fine with just staying away from Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, it would be next level analytics if these teams actually incorporated that they go on those switch hitters hit from the other side of the plate today, but I think we're years away from that being a thing. So, well, who knows? All I know is that Caprilion's bad, and maybe he trolls a few people tonight because I think that Cleveland, you can make the case that they're going to give them a respectably, and it's still not that high, respectable total. I was going to say maybe people will find themselves on the spot. It's probably not going to be the case. So it does feel like a stay away of sorts. But I do want to talk about Plesac here momentarily.
Hey, you call Caprillion bad. Didn't he get an All-Star nod last year?
Did he?
Wasn't
Because
he
I
the
think he
guy?
wasn't he the only athletic that
Well,
wasn't
yeah,
all
because it's a joke. They had to
Does he
include
have to?
they have to
Yeah.
include every one guy from every team. But I think
Gotcha.
Caprillion got that nod last year, so I
Oh
don't know.
God.
Thought it was funny.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty close to All-Star Andrew Wiggins moment there.
Yeah, it
Um,
truly is.
okay. Zach Plesac, 4.99 xFIP over the last year. The carry rate's not the greatest at 17%. Swinging strike rate stuff's all right. Doesn't really K anybody on the left side. It's a guy that I struggle to find spots to play him in. So is this at least something that we can consider today? That now that we know that he's not the worst against righties. I think the ground ball stuff's pretty good. K rate's okay. It's average. But are you at least a little bit? Is he at least in the player pool today?
On an 11 game slate or whatever we're at, 11, 10 games, with how many games we have on the slate, I guess you can potentially pitch Plesac as an SP2 option, but like, why? When you have Rasmussen so cheap
Yeah,
and you have your guy
today
so
for
cheap
sure.
over on DK, like, on a smaller slate, it would make sense to me. I would get behind it, but today, no thanks. I'll stay away.
Yeah, if there weren't the other options we've talked about that are mispriced on DraftKings, we'd be more interested there. But yeah, I agree with you. There's no real reason, and for what it's worth, Caprilion's actually uh, more expensive than Plesac on FanDuel. So there's your 2 cents for that today.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not. Yeah, I don't love any of it. I mean, the wind is nice. It's cool. Like, we don't really see 25-mile-an-hour winds in Oakland very much. But I don't really feel like I can get behind anything there. And like, I guess the only thing you could look at would be uh, Spencer Brown. I don't know. I don't really want to play, or not Spencer, just Brown, like
That's Brown.
Peterson, Seth Brown. Thank you. Um, no, it's just a bunch of everything I just hate. I think this lineup actually got worse than it was last year.
Yeah, potentially. It's only going to get worse as the season goes along. So look forward to that.
Yeah. Okay. Good game to skip over. Probably spent too much time on it.
Probably.
Arizona and San Diego is next. Got 2 more to go. Right now, the Diamondbacks are the +120 Underdog on the road behind Zach Gallen. Yu Darvish takes the rubber for the Padres, minus 142. At home here, 7 is the total, represents the lowest total on today's slate. The wind is going to agree in a very heavy way. So not only is San Diego 32 of 32 in the park factor situation from last year, now the temperatures are going to be 50 degrees and descending as the game goes on, and the wind is coming in from left field at 20 to 25 miles an hour the entire game. So it does look like there are pitcher opportunities here. Let's start and talk with Zach Gallen going up against this Padres squad. Gallen, a guy that I think both of us do respect at least somewhat here. Do I have the pitching right here?
No,
No,
it's
it is
not
Weathers.
Zach Gallen. Yeah,
Okay. Sorry, my bad.
all good.
For whatever reason, I think that must have changed in the last like half hour because I didn't refresh that. So anyway, still should at least discuss the spot. I think we're gonna get a spot where if I have this correct, Weathers is going to be the starting pitcher today. So that does change things, obviously. But yeah, I think 7.82 xFIP's not the greatest here. Limited sample size, so it does feel like we're going to have an opener situation, correct? Just on the fly here.
I don't think so. Weathers is pretty starting pitcher viable. So I imagine he's just going to he's probably going to take 4 to 5 innings. He's not going to go super deep. They're definitely going to rely on their bullpen a little bit here. But Weathers has certainly filled that starting role before. Certainly not a very good starting pitcher, very clearly by the 7.82 xFIP. Didn't get a lot of time on the field though last year. So take it with a grain of salt. He can obviously improve. This Padres team likes him for a good bit. They think he's a talented prospect, and because I don't know where to lean because like I actually think I would like some hitters here. The problem that you mentioned though, the wind, could really prove to be the detriment to a lot of these Arizona guys. And I already don't like Arizona against lefties. I rather have them against righties because you get like better spots for Carroll, better spots for McCarthy, better spots for some of these other lefties. So it's probably somewhat of a stay away spot for me. I think you could take Steele upside because it's not like San Diego has a good catcher to kind of throw these guys out. But I think Weathers is probably going to do just fine. Might go 5 innings, allow 3 earned runs. Don't play him. I don't think he gets many strikeouts or anything, but I could see him just kind of holding ground and then handing it off to the bullpen.
Yeah, agreed there. In any situation like that, it's just less enticing for me to get behind certain situations for these hitters. So throw in the wind and the park factor, I don't know. I understand that the total's now up to 8.5, but is it really worth it today when you have we still have to get to the last game on the slate too? So I'm okay with staying there. The team that I want to move over and talk about here is this Padres team because I want to find out whether or not you agree that they are in that B tier of teams. So let's go ahead and talk about this spot. We have Nelson on the mound here for Arizona. The small sample size here says 5.73 xFIP, 23% K rate. Swinging strike rate under 10. The walk rate to righties is a little bit concerning with over 10%. Gives up a ton of hard contact to lefty or to righties. Obviously, small sample size here. So give me the spiel on what to expect here for the San Diego Padres.
Yeah, I think there's some upside to this Padres team. I've seen Nelson. He gives up a lot of hard contact, especially to righties. It's a very limited sample size from last year from what we saw, but we finally got some guys on the right track yesterday. Grisham hit his home run. Bogey hit a big home run. That thing was a monster slam.
Yeah.
It looks like these guys are getting back on track. So I definitely have some interest against Nelson. That Diamondbacks bullpen isn't up to snuff quite yet. So I think Grisham up the top of the lineup is a great leadoff hitter that you could take for a pretty cheap price tag. I think potentially Soto, Cronenworth to get some lefties, but I also really like Bogarts, like I mentioned, and even Manny Machado. It's an expensive stack, so you got to pay up for it. Not necessarily viable on FanDuel. A little bit more viable on DraftKings with the price tags that they're at, but I think there's certainly upside to this San Diego team, and I have some interest in targeting them more so towards the GPP side, though.
Right. So they're going to make that B tier less than the Rangers and a little bit like more along the lines of where that Yankees team is?
Yes, for sure. Definitely not up where the Rangers are. I think I would have the Rangers ahead of them, but I think
Mhm.
they are still really solid.
Yeah, yeah, I'll get on board with that. I think that people may, well, maybe not. I kind of have a hard time reading this so early in the season, but obviously last night's performance probably gets people more excited about San Diego. And the Rockies, we have to remember, just kind of have their number for what it's worth over the last couple of years. So we'll see how that affects things tonight. We'll say could probably not. I mean, still don't bank on like a huge blow up spot 'cause I do think that it could be a really frustrating night if some of those balls are really well hit out to left and then they kind of just die out there. That could really be a thing today.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Last game on the board here, we have the Colorado Rockies taking on the LA Dodgers. Right now, the Rockies come in as the obvious underdog here, being a plus 184 behind Feltner. Grove for the Dodgers minus 220. 8.5 is the total. The wind here for this Dodgers team, as well as the rest of the West Coast, it's obviously a little bit different in Oakland, but it's very similar to San Diego, where we're going to have mid 50s here at first pitch in the temperature, and then the wind is actually like one of the, like I don't, it's a few miles per hour up, right? So it's not huge, like drastic, but it is some of the heavier winds that we're going to experience, at least at the start of this game, ranging from 25 to 28 miles an hour. I'm sure the gusts are even a little bit more than that. So let's take a look at these Rockies hitters first. I mean, obviously, we never like to target Rockies on the road, but does it start today? I would assume no.
No, certainly does not. I don't know what Grove's going to bring to the table necessarily. I know we got some innings from him last year, but they were mostly in relief stuff and long relief stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how he fares as a starter. Certainly not very good numbers for Grove, but yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to watch him tonight because I'll be watching this game not for his reasons or not for Rocky's reasons, but
Yeah.
I'll be watching this one and I'll be excited to see what he does. There is one guy that I do like. I do like Charlie. He's been killing it so far this year, man. The
Mhm.
guy's been amazing, and he continues to play really well against some really tough pitching against San Diego. I think he could potentially get the Grove. I think he is the only guy that I'm interested in though, and that's more of a prop space thing than really a DFS thing.
Yeah. Can certainly get behind the Charlie Blackmon spot. I think I am just looking forward to Thursday when they play in course. So
Yes.
that's kind of where I'm looking. Good to see Charlie swinging away at the start of the year, though. I think that's great. So where we should focus the conversation, though, is the fact that the Dodgers are going to be one of those A-tier teams today. And I think that it'll make for some interesting conversations when you compare them to teams like the Red Sox, teams like the Astros, teams like the Rangers. So they're currently, despite all the wind and all the other stuff going on here, they still have the highest implied live total at 5.3, and they're going to go up in this spot against a pitcher in Feltner here who is giving up his xFIP here is 5.06. The K rate's 19.6%. The swinging strike rate's under 10. Not really striking too many guys out. I would say, average numbers or a little bit below average there. Giving up a lot of hard contact. And as long as these Dodgers guys don't hit the ball on the ground, I think they'll have some really good opportunities for success today.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think you're looking for guys who can elevate the ball, but I mean, it's not like Feltner's ground ball rate is all that high. At the end of
Not
the day,
that great. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's just a bad pitcher, right? xFIP is 5, K rate below 20, walk rate at 8%, which should open the line to get some stolen bases for some of these guys. So there's just a lot of upside. Hard contact all the way up at 44% too. Yeah, we love getting some Dodgers today. I think you started off with Mookie, who's a really good option if you can afford him, but also
Mhm.
really like Will Smith. Been red hot to start the year, been killing it. You get him at a pretty good price tag on both sites. A little bit more expensive on DraftKings because of him being catch eligible, but FanDuel, good price tag. I really like the Smith upside. I think you try to stay towards either taking the top four in this lineup or the bottom three. I don't really like Martinez or Peralta. I'm more excited to see what they can do throughout the rest of the season, but not excited about them right now. I think Martinez is very boom or bust.
Yeah.
But I like the bottom of this lineup. I like James Outman. He proved how he has that upside to have those home runs. He was he the guy? No, he wasn't the guy who hit a bunch of home runs. for this team. It was Trace Thompson. That's who it was.
Uh,
Regardless, though, I
yeah.
like Outman. I like Vargas at the bottom of this lineup. Even like Rojas with his stolen base upside. Like I just think there's a lot of upside on this team. So Dodgers for my three favorites: Mookie, Smith, and then I think Outman gives you a interesting 1-3-5 for sure, an 8-1-3, but one that I like and one that I can get behind today.
Yeah, Outman's very cheap on DraftKings. He's going to be 2,600 on FanDuel. Uh, I think we're going to find areas this season where you can target a lot of the bottom of the lineup just because of how cheap they can be. And if they get on, usually it'll be a higher success rate than most teams, getting them batted in through the top of the order for those wraparound stacks. So I can get on board with some of that. And we're going to see, those guys are studs. Like I would say that Vargas, Alman, Rojas are better than David Peralta right now. I don't really know why he's hitting above that. But again, that's just a nuance there. So I can get behind the top of the order as well. How do we feel about Max Muncy?
I think Muncie's okay. If you want to go there, you definitely can. I think there's upside there for sure. I will focus on Betts and Smith when it comes to paying up, but I think great pivots is going to guys like Muncie and Freeman for sure.
Right. So you're preferring the righties, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Okay. And do we have the opportunity now that we're at the end of the show to clearly put them at number one on stacks today?
Yeah, this was the team that we were waiting for because I didn't want to rank any and kind of give away that the Dodgers were the top, but now we can finally rank them. Dodgers come in number one. I think after that you have Houston as number two, and then you have Texas as number three, and then 4, 5 kind of get convoluted between that Yankee, Rays, Padres,
Red Sox.
Red Sox, Trout, all those teams. I guess so. I'll put Red Sox at 4, and then leave that 5 seed for all of those teams. All of them qualify as teams that I'd be fine with putting at 5. I think there's only little things that make their matchups different. But yeah, I think you have a really solid base with those 4. And you know what? Now that I've completely forgot about Red Sox, I'd probably put Red Sox at 3 and Rangers at 4, and that's how I do the list. So top 3: Dodgers, almost said Rockets, not the Houston Rockets. So Astros, and then Red Sox next, and then the rest of that group.
All right. Yeah, I like it. I think this slate's really awesome for a Monday. And yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying the new content, the free podcast. It's something we take a lot of pride in terms of this, and we're gonna be doing it all season. And it's a great slate to play. You watch the national championship, you watch your home runs getting loaded up during the course of this slate. It's gonna be a fun one to sweat out.
Yep, for sure, without a doubt. All right, all the way through, man. We did a pretty good job of getting it in and out. Hour and 20, not bad for an 11-game slate. Jared, any other final notes? If not, let's get out of here, man.
Yeah. So the final thoughts that I have for today, it's not a bad slate to get to, take a stance on one of the top 4 teams that we've stated and be a little bit heavier on them compared to the rest. There's gonna be a ton of options today, and that's where I think that, in terms of DFS ownership could be pretty spread out, all things considered here. There obviously will be concentrated numbers around certain things, but I think that, again, we have a situation on FanDuel where the starting pitching group could be really focused in on one guy, and that guy being Rasmussen today. And again, no issues with that, but it's been very easy to identify who the chalk pitcher is going to be, and that pitcher has done pretty well over the past 4 days. So it's not always going to be that way, but it has been certainly a trend that we've experienced here. I also do want to say as well that we are going to be posting something here on the RotoRadar main Twitter handle here shortly about kind of taking advantage of no NBA today, giving you guys that aren't signed up necessarily an opportunity to get on board here the next couple of days and experience the product. And hopefully, if you like what you hear during the podcast, that you're going to jump on board and join us for the rest of the season.
Yes, for sure, without a doubt. All right, thank you all for listening. As always, my name is Joshua Riemer. Good night.